Hello, and welcome to our YWCA Facebook Live Connect, Heal, Learn speaker series. I'm Laura Gomez Horton, Clinical Director of the YWCA Greater Austin. For those who are unfamiliar, YWCA Greater Austin provides individual, couple, family, and group therapy, care coordination services, life skills classes, school-based services, consultation, training, and advocacy. Our mission is to eliminate racism, empower women, stand up for social justice, help families, and strengthen communities, which we've been doing in the Central Texas area for over 115 years. We truly stand at the intersection of mental health and social justice. This speaker series focuses on inviting subject matter experts to discuss topics connected to mental wellness and social justice. Today, we are discussing back to school, a backpack of mixed emotions. We will be discussing a variety of aspects that impact the families, students, and school staff as we get ready to send children back into the schools. Today, we are joined by Mayra Hernandez, Director of the Whole Child Community Partnership and Engagement, and Charlesetta Beasley, 7th grade teacher in Smithville ISD and current clinical intern at YWCA. So I would like to get started. I'd like to welcome you both, and I'd like to get started with just a quick little introduction. So if each of you could just tell us a little bit about yourselves, your role, and the journey that has brought you to your connections with schools.
I'll go first. My name is Charlesetta, and I work at Smithville Independent School District. I am a 7th grade teacher. I love learning. I love helping the students meet their academic goals. I love seeing the light bulb go off when they get a concept or when they finally get an idea or something that they would like to share. I just love to see that excitement, and I'm happy to be here.
Welcome. Myra?
Yes, so my name is Mayra Hernandez, and I'm the director for the Whole Child Community Partnerships and Engagement with Manor Independent School District. I think for me, what has brought me here and my why is just, having been raised, my background and with my parents and, the limited resources that we had growing up and just some trauma that was experienced, during childhood and just remembering being young, thinking about how I wanted to be that person that helped that little me that needed help at that time. And so just being able to make that impact, being that person that would be able to listen to our children in school and help advocate for them and empower them.
Wonderful. Well, welcome both. And I noticed that both of you seem to be in a school setting right now. So I'm guessing you're both back at work, back in full work method already. And I'm thinking like you've already had some interactions maybe with some of the families and students that are coming back this year. What are some things that you all are hearing from the families and students and maybe also the staff working at these schools? What are some, I don't know, what's the buzz in the schools right now?
We just had actually a back to school resource fair on Tuesday. And right now we're in the middle of a Fresh Cut Friday where we're giving free haircuts to all of our scholars and family members. And being out there and interacting with our families, I think one of the most common questions we've been getting is what are differently so that our children can be safe when they come back to school, referring to what happened in Uvalde. And so there's still fear in parents, and they're demanding answers. What is the district doing to keep our kids safe? Has anything changed, from the last day of school? They want to know those answers, like what's being done differently.
Here I've been, so we have a back to school bash that I participate in, and we will be giving out school supplies actually tomorrow from 8 to 12. And then I think what I've been hearing, students are excited. They say the summer has gone by really quickly, but they're also kind of excited about coming back, and some of them to see their friends because they haven't seen them in a while. Yeah. And I've also heard some concerns about safety and how will it look different? Will it look different? What do we need to do differently? Our administrators have been really good about making sure that a letter has went out to our community to let them know, we're aware of what is going on and that we're doing everything and that we can do to make sure that the campuses are safe and there's other additional eyes. So we've had an increase in police force coming and being a support here on campuses. So
yeah, definitely. And I think that's why, I've titled that, it's a backpack of mixed emotions, because I think, remembering back to childhood is like, I remember it's like, oh, I got my new pair of shoes that I want to go show off, or, I get to reconnect with my friends. But then there's this overarching, looming, we can't forget what happened at the end of the last school year with the wildest shooting. So yeah, that I don't know. Are you all noticing, does that seem to be interfering a lot more with that excitement and anticipation of going back to school?
I think there definitely is, that fear. I know that at the end of the year, when we were releasing students, because there was, multiple threats, one spirit, whether it's a district or whether it's almost like you start noticing different things, right? And so one of the things that, we did was just really stress on the importance of building relationships. I know that's a big expectation that I'm putting on my team, is building those relationships, right? We've been doing a lot more professional development with different departments, like our transportation, because they're the first person they see when they get on the bus, and they're the last person they see in terms of the academic world, right? And so really training our transportation staff on how to build, trauma sensitive spaces in their buses, and how to form those deep relationships. Our Manor police department, there has been an increase in police officers, so they've hired more police officers. We just did a training with them yesterday. And our presentation, I named it, one team, one fight, right? We're all in this together, and how can we collaborate as a team with our police department and our social workers, so that our families see us, right, as advocates of change. I know that a lot of our children that have experienced trauma, when they see an officer in uniform, a lot of times they connect that as they're here to take someone away, or to arrest, or to do some kind of harm. And so one of the things we really talked about was just forming those relationships. Our officers being out here, they came to our resource fair, right? And they engaged with our scholars, handed out stickers. My little boy got a sticker, and he came home saying he wants to be a police officer, and he's only 4, but just, again, having that visibility from leadership is super important for our families to see leadership out there, seeing our board members, seeing our police officers, so that they know that they're accessible and approachable, that I can, even though you have this high leadership, I can reach you and ask you a question, because we have that type of relationship.
We experiencing some of the same things, like definitely the building relationships, and we've been participating in a lot more trainings this year as we prepare to go back to school together, like with the whole staff and all the faculty, and the trauma-informed care training that we just recently received too, I think will definitely benefit us, and knowing what students will come back in, that what they're bringing with them, not just, things that they experience at home, not just things that they have experience during the summer, but also what actually happened at the end of the school year, because there was a lot of conversation, a lot of concern about, is school a safe place? I want to feel safe at school. And as we're developing our mission and vision for the year, we are also discussing that, this should be a safe place for everyone.
And one of the things that I wanted to add, if I can, is I know that was a big question that a lot of our families had, like, is school safe, right? And for me personally, big belief that I had is just being fully transparent, like not making promises of, yes, your school is going to be safe, right? Because we don't know. And I think that's the scary piece, that the reality is that we don't know. You know, anything could happen anywhere, in the parking lot, in your house, while you're driving. So we can't make promises that your child will be safe, but we can say that our district, at least, we're doing everything we can to ensure that it is safe. Now, we don't have control of things that may happen, you know, but one big step that we are taking is I'm doing a partnership with Daybreak, and they're going to be doing mental health screeners with every child ages 11 to 19. So we're really, really increasing that focus on mental health, really addressing, like, are we looking at every scholar? Are we missing anyone? You know, there might be a student that we had no idea was suffering, you know, through depression or anxiety or stress. And, you know, what is it that is making our scholars reach the point of dying by suicide, or wanting to grab a gun and bring it to school, or wanting to bully someone, right? What is it that's happening and that's triggering that? So we're doing these mental health screeners, and with those, it's going to be able to assist us in looking deeper into our scholars and what are some issues they are struggling with. In addition to that, we will tier them up and make sure that we're connecting everybody with services. So with Maynard, we have services like Communities in Schools, Integral Care, Council on At-Risk Youth, T-Chat. We'll now have Daybreak. We're partnered with, you know, Phoenix House, with LifeWorks, you know, but if a scholar isn't receiving one of those services, then that's where we would say, okay, where can we connect you? So really making sure that we're looking at scholar. And in addition to that, we're also looking at forming a partnership with Brave Up and Rhythm. And those are two different partners that address the social emotional learning. And so would be conducting like a 1 minute to 2 minute survey in the classroom, where we're looking deeper into the different patterns of bullying and cyberbullying. So just in case we miss something, we have this other system where we're really looking into those relationships. You know, why is Valerie never invited, you know, to any birthday parties? Why is, you know, Jose always sitting alone? Nobody sits with him in the cafeteria, and he may be, or we may be missing someone because, oh, they're a GT student, they're like valedictorian, and we don't think anything's wrong. But then we get back their assessment, and we realize that they're suffering from deep anxiety, which is leading to suicidal ideation, but they've never told anyone, right? And so those are just some additional steps that we're taking to really look at the safety of our scholars and overall the safety of our schools.
Oh, that's wonderful, Myra. I think that's
it's awesome.
You know, yeah. Are y'all doing anything like that, Charlesetta?
I think we're like at the beginning stages of definitely implementing more in our character education. We definitely hit all of those spots on campus, and each student we do the character education for like a 30-minute gap. We call it Tiger Time. And so during our Tiger Time each week, and it can encompass a video, it can encompass an interactive activity, but it is touching on all of those subjects. And also anytime our counselors also coming in and speaking with us and telling us, giving us little tips of advice and different things to look for and how to handle it. So I think we're starting like building like what else is needed. And then even now, like we're reaching out and having the students, the parents, and eventually going to the community of, you know, hey, what are the things that you see that's a need here on our campus, and how can we help best meet that need?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely in the last few years, there's been a big, magnifying glass on mental health. You know, it's been highlighted a lot more. So, you know, some school districts are a little bit more, have more resources, and they're able to function and pivot quicker and get some of these resources connections, and other school districts might, you know, struggle a little bit. But I think that mental health awareness has really come to light in all areas, especially around the school shootings. But also, you know, let's not forget, we're still in the pandemic, and that had a big impact on people's emotional and physical health as well. So that's another thing that the students and the families are carrying along with them. You know, there's probably a lot of grief and loss in their lives. There's a shift in the way they interact with each other. There was about a whole year that we didn't interact with each other, if not longer. So maybe some developmental shifts or something that might have happened with them too. But it sounds like, in Manor ISD, they're doing some great connections, and that is, we were talking about relationships and connections, and that is what's needed, is how do we connect to each other to make sure that everybody has the resources that they're needing to look at the mental health needs. Yeah, so we've been talking a little bit about the students and scholars. What about people in your roles? What about, like, I don't want to take it too personal, but, just like, what about in your roles? I mean, I'm sure that you all have some concerns about going back to school and school safety too. I'm sure that's not in your head too, along with the excitement and anticipations. But how are you all doing with those thoughts?
I know that has been something that, again, part of the vision and the focus that we're doing, at least for our department, is I've been talking a lot in these professional development opportunities and telling staff that we've done a big focus on our scholars, but you can't help the scholars if our staff are not taken care of, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times the staff that are addressing the crisis, it's our team, right? It's our team of social workers, we're those first responders, and all of our mental health partners like CIS and CARE, Integral Care. Whenever a crisis happens, depending on the crisis, we call on these people to go address it. But there's also that burnout, right? And the fear of our own teachers, right? And our own staff. And so I think just really making it a priority for us to have that safe space to talk about it, mm-hmm. and really addressing, what the issue, right? So last May, and I actually have my shirt on, it's a Fight the Stigma shirt. Mm-hmm. We first ever mental health symposium last May. And it was just for staff, it really for our staff, for our whole community, where we invited over 60 mental health vendors and made it all about self-care, a place where they can come in as a retreat, take care of their mental health, get partnered up with whatever organization they felt could meet their needs. We've been doing professional development around self-care and really looking at it through a lens of self-care isn't you booking a massage, getting your nails done. We have to be realistic. During the day, as you're in front of a classroom teaching and you're stressed out, what are some realistic, coping skills that you can use in the classroom that are going to help you not get up and slap a child? Because that's the reality that, it's been on the news, teachers that end up getting arrested because they couldn't take it and they took it on a child. And one of the things that I addressed in one of my presentations was that could be any of us. And we may say, like, oh, I would never do that. I mean, why would I hit a child? But the thing is, when you don't monitor those red flags, mm-hmm. or monitor that tiredness, that compassion fatigue, mm-hmm. you can be that person in jail behind the bars because you are not aware of what those triggers are, right? Mm-hmm. Or you've reached your limit, and I think that's what happens with a lot of those folks that end up in those situations, is that they've reached their limit and maybe never said anything, or they just ignored it. So I think really we're highlighting on the importance of that, self-care, talking to someone, stressing to our staff that they could use the employee assistance program, mm-hmm. that they have 1 to 6 free counseling sessions, legal services. If they go out on happy hour because they're stressed and have a few too many drinks, mm-hmm. that they can use, a driver to take, that they don't end up getting hurt or hurt someone else. So we're really trying to emphasize on that information, but then also just giving people the permission to feel that way. That it's okay to feel this way, but that it's important for us to start fighting that stigma, mm-hmm. that it's a thing you keep to yourself. Like, know that a lot of us are battling that, and it may be a everyday thing, it may be an every minute thing, but again, just being able to talk about it and having some safe space and a safe person to be able to process it.
Did you want to add anything to that, Charles?
No, I am writing notes.
We're learning right along with it.
I love the shirt idea. I love that. That is awesome. And we do have the conversations about self-care, but that is awesome. And I'm definitely going to share that, because that making sure that you are giving your teachers permission in a safe place to ask for help, receive the help, and be able to implement it in the moment. That is awesome and amazing. And we have those conversations, right? We have those conversations in the parking lot and in the hallway and in the break room. But having it and acknowledging it and putting it out there, and then saying, and by the way, here's a way that you can also address it. Yeah. Awesome. So I definitely will be in contact with you.
Yeah, I mean, definitely they're eliminating that stigma. If you can make mental health just another regular thing that we talk about at the dinner table or with our coworkers, then it's like when we were talking earlier, Myra and I were talking about haircuts. It's like if we could talk about mental health as we would about haircuts, or that I went to this and watched this movie the other day. Why can't we just say, I'm not feeling well today, or I need a extra break or something? Yeah.
Our chief of economics, he is like our model person. He's always wearing his t-shirt. And one of the things he shared with me is that this t-shirt has it has opened up so many conversations where he's in the airport and people stop him and ask him about the shirt. And then they just start opening up about depression may be fighting, or anxiety or PTSD. And just most recently, teachers came up to him during our professional learning, and he was wearing his t-shirt, and they started talking about mental health and the struggles that they're having with. So then he came up to me and said, what more can we do for our staff, right? And so again, like you said, Laura, like, just why can't we make this a normal conversation, just like the way we talk about clothing and hair and nails, and let's talk about this, right? Because I think a lot of us may be struggling with it, and I think for me personally, like I felt more comfortable opening up about it. I've always struggled with anxiety, and so I think I've become really good friends with it now, because I've known I've hit rock bottom because of it, but it's also been empowering to talk to others about it, because it takes away the shame. I know for me it was hard because, oh wait, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I shouldn't be I shouldn't be feeling this, but on more pressure, and it adds to the anxiety versus being it, right? Versus you being able to talk about it and say, these are the struggles that I've had. This is what has helped me, or this is what has not helped me. And again, emphasizing on just being able to normalize, that it's more common than we think it is.
Yeah. Well, and I think part of it is that people feel like it's this big, huge thing. Like when we say mental health, they think, oh my God, it's like, no, I'm not depressed, because otherwise I wouldn't be, they have a vision of what it means to be depressed or anxious, or, where it's just everyday life stressors that start compounding on each other and start building, or, just acknowledging that, that there's a sense of loss, or sense of fear, or even, happiness. All these are emotions, the positive emotions too, but it's like, it's not this big, huge thing that needs to have happened. So I wanted to go back a little bit to the safety piece that we were talking about, because one of the things I wanted to point out is that for a lot of kids, sometimes school is their safe place. For them, that's where they get, a breakfast and lunch. That's where they get connection, a safe connection or a healthy connection. And then adding this fear of, okay, now we need to do these school drills, and now we need to talk about this. And, it does take away a little bit from that safety, because now the one place they could feel safe and escape maybe a negative home life, or where they were being hurt, or maybe they just had, food insecurities, or, whatever they were experiencing. So there is a little bit sense of a loss there, at least from my perspective. I don't know how you all feel about that.
I think there is, but I think there's a piece that as a teacher that, and I know there's several other teachers on the campus that they do it as well. But after we have those drills, we have a conversation. It's not that we had the drill's over. Sit down, let's continue our day. No matter what type of drill it is, I talk about the importance of it and why do we practice it? Like what is the purpose of practicing? And of course, I try to lead that into any habit, anything you do over and over again, it can help you, or it can hurt you. So I go into a whole different conversation with them, but I think that piece of it is there. And then also when you know that there are students that are constantly hungry or have needs, there are teachers that they make sure that they may have extra snacks, or that's, some of those students know that I can always go here. We'll say, I may pull a student in the hall and say, hey, go talk to the nurse and just, grab something real quick and eat it, go to the bathroom, come back. You kind of take care of it a different way versus because that the need is there. And then of course the counselor is always there to help out as well and to making sure that we can try to meet whatever needs we can here on the campus because they're here. We have them for 8+ hours a day, sometimes more, 10, 12. So it's the teamwork approach of trying to make sure that those kids have their needs met and that they do feel safe, creating those relationships so that they feel safe enough to even say I'm hungry. Or sometimes, it's that their behavior is demonstrated in their behavior, and something's off. So without even having to have some of those conversations, you just meet the need and move on.
I definitely agree with that as well, that piece is instrumental, having time to debrief, having time to process it. But I think that we also need to talk a lot about putting that responsibility on parents as well, right? Because our kids are listening, right? And I know it's sad sometimes when I look at social media and see, parents complaining about, well, why are you making my kid wear a clear backpack? Are they in a prison now? Is that what the expectation is? And, and it's hard because you're wrong if you don't add safety procedures, and you're wrong if you add safety procedures, right? So really, I think that if we can all just come together and collaborate and for there to be that understanding that parents as educators, we are doing everything we can. We don't want to be in a situation like Uvalde, we're invested. We're here not because of the pay, obviously, but we're because we have a passion and we don't want to get hurt ourselves. That involves all of us, and we all have families too, right? And so we're all doing everything we can to try to make our school safe, but we also need that piece of parents also talking to their children about, this is why the schools are doing this, right? So that education, right? They're doing this because they're trying to keep you safe, and they're going to be, doing drills, or they're going to be practicing this. And that is all part of their procedure to make sure that you're safe, because I want you to come back home to me. Right. So partnering up with us in that way. Right. And if we're requiring clear backpacks for them to understand that this is because, again, these are steps we're taking to try to bring that safety. And I think for us, that's why we have our resource fair, right? That if you don't have the money to purchase the backpack, hey, we got you covered, just come to our resource fair or call us at our number and we will support you with the backpack or school supplies, right? So I think just that partnership between the school and the community is very important in order for any of this to be able to happen, the safety planning.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely, and I know we've been talking about the students and the school personnel, but definitely the family and the guardians and the people's community, their neighborhoods, all these aspects are so important in continuing these conversations and making sure, like you said, safety is not just about school, but also in the neighborhoods and on your way to school and the bus ride and while you're living at home. So those conversations just need to keep happening in general with the families, with the communities, and figuring out what else we can do as as communities to create some change to make sure that our families and our neighborhoods are safe.
I'm really glad that. So the building that we're in, the middle school is in, this is our third year. It's a fairly new building. And I'm it as a parent and as an educator, it really made me feel it brought a sense of safety, knowing all the thought that went into how our building is designed. Like, you can't get in unless you're buzzed in. And then our high school, we went to that as well. And then they remodeled our elementary and preschool area, and it's the same concept. So there's so much more that has gone in the thought of definitely physically, what can we do? We're in the middle of the community. What can we do? High traffic area, highway. What can we do? I definitely, as a parent, it put my mind at ease, and it really helped with thinking, okay, once I drop off, I know the procedure. And even if I have to go do something and I run to the door and I'm like, oh my goodness, forgot my ID. I go back to my car now with a little less irritation. So, but it does feel good knowing that time, thought, and progression when it came to safety was a thought when they were building our campus. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I think that's a key word that you just said, Charles, that it was about the irritation. And I think, what Myra said about the parents asking, like, well, why do we now need a clear backpack? Or why are we now doing this? It is irritating. It does take us out of our sense of safety, honestly. And I think that may be where the parents and families may be coming from, is that why are we having to change the way we are?
Yes.
Because of these things that are happening, or these things that have happened. And I think it's just it's part of that interwoven grief and loss that we all feel. We feel a loss of innocence, a loss of safety, a loss of freedom, in the sense that we have to think about these things now. Just like with the pandemic, we have to think about putting on a face covering. We have to think about how close is somebody standing to us. And I think it does irritate people sometimes that they have to change the way they move around through the world.
And I think you said the answer was in the question. Why do we have to change the way we are? Because, we have to change the way where we are because of where we are. We have to change the why we do it because of where we are. So things have changed, and we have to change with it in order to be safe and to feel safe.
So how do we help our communities move forward? How do we help, like Myra was saying about fighting the stigma? What other things do we need to do? What are some things we need to do to help communities cope?
I think the main thing is, from what I see, is our community just wants transparency. That's it. And they just want answers. And that includes even when you don't have an answer, right? And not to be left hanging. So it brings us back to that customer service, the basics of forming relationships. If I reach out to you and I took the time to leave you a voicemail, please respond within 24 hours or 48 hours. It just goes back to those basics. If I took the time as a concerned parent to email you or to leave you a voicemail, please respond back to me, right? And so I think what our community needs, and it's just building on that trust, because we're living in a world that is very different, with a lot of uncertainty, right? And that ambiguous loss, because we don't know, we don't know when we're going to go back to the days where pre-COVID, or the days where we didn't have to worry about all these different trainings and preparing for shooters, or, all of this other stuff, right? And so I think that really what our community wants is a way for us to just build more opportunities to build trust. And the way we build trust is by communication, right? Being fully transparent. And that would include, if somebody asks me a question and I don't know it, being fully open and honest. I don't know, but let me find out for you, right? In the middle of finding out, still keeping the person updated. I still haven't gotten a response, because even if you're doing all of your research, that other person doesn't know you're doing it. And for them, they're assuming you just forgot, right? And so I think that the key piece is communication in all different kinds of levels, not just through social media, because some of our families live in remote areas where they don't have access to social media, right? And so are you sending newsletters? Are you going to their house and dropping it off in their mailbox, a letter, and so really getting creative in your form of communication, by email, by phone calls, by text messages, through social media. I just think it's that communication, and then just building on opportunities of having different events that focus on security, that focus on mental health, that focus on just celebrating, so just different opportunities to bring our families together, and just that opportunity to engage in these different conversations.
I definitely. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I agree. I think that's awesome. I also like any community activities that we can bring in. I mean, we kind of like a Friday night football game mindset, but yet, hey, we're doing this in the community and going out. Like sometimes it's the electronic way is not. It does get masses that it can reach masses quickly. But sometimes the door-to-door approach, especially with us being, in a smaller town, a smaller area, that door-to-door approach, it makes it more personal, and people are willing to be like, you know what, you really do care. You took out the time to actually take that next step.
Right. And you're not as scary anymore.
Yes.
Scary. And I think back, even in my own culture, for in the Latino culture, it's like by that word of mouth. If I trust you, and you come to me and you're telling me about this person, then I know that I can go to that person.
Yes.
I feel safe with you, and you wouldn't be sending me to somebody else, right? And so just having that face-to-face, forming those relationships, getting out there, because again, I think that takes you back to, wow, they took the time to come knock on my door. That means a lot, and so that's one thing that our district recently did is, they did like a re-engagement walk, and they went and knocked on doors of our families that left the district. And our superintendent went and knocked on the door and pretty much asked, how can I bring you back? What did we do? Why did you leave us? And how can we make up for it? What can we do to bring you back? And so families were able to see that, like, wow, the superintendent took time out of his busy schedule, because we know superintendents have probably super chaotic schedules. Right? He came out here, knocked on my door, and is listening. And I think, again, that just speaks volumes, right? Of having our leadership come out there, walk in the shoes of the type of work that we do every day.
Well, I'm going to put you all on the spot because that's what I do. And I'm just going to ask real quick, because again, we're talking about taking care of other people, taking care of our staff, communities, all that stuff. And, we've heard the put your gas mask on first before you help somebody else with it. So what are some things that you all are doing for yourselves that ensures your capacity to continue doing what you're doing?
Go ahead.
I'll go ahead. I think for me, one of the things that I've done, I've always loved being super active. And so one of the things that I'm encouraging my team is, if they're okay working through their lunch, we, get together, we're still talking and we're working, but then like that last hour, 30 minutes, we get together and we exercise together, whether it's dancing or doing weights, going for a walk, like just that time together to, to just like not even think about work, just work on ourselves. Right. And then also the expectation of, take a lunch break. And if you're not going to be doing that, participating in this exercising or whatever, take your lunch break. And that means shut down your computer and take an actual lunch, right? It means, taking those small breaks throughout the day. It means, like, for example, today, I called, my chief and said, like, we've been working long hours. We've been working weekends. We haven't had a day off, I think, in 2 weeks because we've been preparing for back to school. We all love doing that, but making sure that like today, as soon as we're done with this Fresh Cut Friday, that we wrap it up and go home. There's so many fires to, bring down today, but we're not going to be able to do it if we're exhausted and tired. So sometimes that means leaving work early. Right. It means shutting down the computer and answering, those 100 emails until you get back because they're still going to be there and more. Mm-hmm. And so just giving yourself permission that you don't have to answer those emails like today, that you don't have to meet that additional partner today. Right. And so being able to say no, I think it's a huge piece.
Or at least not now.
You ended with my first one. Being okay with saying no. No, I cannot do that. No, my plate is full. And I'm not even going to try to renegotiate a way that I can try to do it. No, I cannot do it. So that goes into setting boundaries for myself, like what's on my plate, being able to divide it up. And I actually, I personally wrote a list, like things that I want to do, like things, and it was I did it based on my personal relationships, because in the midst of being in school, having an internship and working full time, I want to make sure that I am staying connected in my personal relationships. So I am scheduling time in my schedule for my personal relationships, whether it be a phone call or a text message or physically going and seeing them. So I'm doing that. And then I go to mixers with my exercise buddies, and I'm doing everything in my power to protect my exercise time. So those are a couple of things: boundaries, setting no, and protecting my exercise time for me.
I think one thing that you reminded me of right now is one of the other things we recently started with my team is we kind of, looked at each other and we had like little sticky notes, and we told each other, like, I told them, pick another person in this room that you've seen has been like working really hard, has been like nonstop, whatever, or just anyone that just speaks to you from the heart, that you just want to pick this person. You're not going to tell them. You're going to write it to yourself in a little sticky note. You're going to go to another person that you didn't pick, right? And you're going to tell them who you picked. And so that person's going to hold you accountable. Like you check on that person all year. You may start them with sending them a secret TIFF treats box, right? Or it doesn't have to be money, right? You can just maybe, without them knowing, you covered for them on a shift, or you took that extra family that was calling for a crisis without them knowing, you handled it, right? And it's almost like you're their little secret, cheer person, or their secret, support without them knowing. And for you not to shout it out like, oh, like I'm doing all this extra stuff for them, right? Just doing it from your heart. And that other person is holding you accountable, like, hey, Myra, are you taking care of so-and-so, are you doing something to kind of lift their plate, And I'm a big believer too of like, the good you put into the world is returned to you, right? And you're not doing it because you want to get all these things returned, but I just feel like it's that energy, right? Our chief of innovations, equity and innovation, she said something very important that just kind of stayed with me. And she asked us in our leadership retreat, like, who are you allowing in your table and whose table are you sitting at? Right. And again, that speaks to those habits, right? That if you're hanging with the wrong crowd or people that's energy is not going towards lifting you, lift both personally and professionally, it's going to hurt you and it's going to damage you. And that's part of that self-care. It's like, how are you spending your time? Are you spending your time cruising through Facebook and Instagram and TikTok videos? Or am I investing in myself? Talking and having conversations with people that are going to help me grow, both professionally, but then also personally, right? What types of books am I reading? Am I into like gossip and chismes and like talking bad about people? Or am I investing my time in and things that are going to help me grow, signing up for different conferences, because at the end, all of that is investing in myself, both personally and professionally.
Well, thank you both so much. Are there any other last comments, that something maybe we didn't touch on that you really want to put out there? Maybe events coming up, things from the heart, whatever that y'all would like to share.
I would just say we've touched on it, but I just want to re-emphasize it's mental health is important, and we have to take time to address it, to be aware of it, to make others aware of it, because we need to it's the part of us that has had the negative stigma, so we don't do a lot to take care of it intentionally. So being more intentional about taking care of ourselves mentally.
And I think just as we start school back up, it's just remembering to be kind.
Yes.
Remember to be patient. It's always interesting when holiday season kicks around, everybody's super generous. And it just, if we could keep that spirit all year.
Yes.
And just, all of us are going to be busy, especially educators, when school starts, and transportation and front office and receptionists, we're going to deal with all kinds of personalities. And so just speaking both to the educators and to the community and to the families, we need to take care of one another, really take care of one another, right? Take care of yourself, but then also take care of, just take care of one another, right? I think that if we all work as a community, if we all work at taking care of each other, I think we'd be a lot better off, right? And just being understanding and empathetic and compassionate and kind, just going back to those principles, right, of relationships.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. And I definitely heard those themes and everything that you all said. Definitely there were connections, that those were important, and that's what continues to be the support for you all. Well, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your amazing work. I do want to remind everyone to keep this conversation going, both of you, Myra and Charlesetta, in your workplaces and your families, but everybody that's joining us today, also keep it going with your families and in your communities. If you do know anybody, or if you yourself are needing someone to talk to and connect with for services, you can contact our YWCA main line at 512-326-1222. And we'll also put it on the comments in the Facebook. And if you all want to continue talking about this particular topic about going back to school and the mixed emotions, we'll be visiting it again at our monthly dialogues on issues of racism and discrimination on August 26th. It's a Friday at 12 to 1:30, and you can find that information on our events page. And I know that YWCA is also trying to support the community with back to school supplies, so you can reach our main line as well and find out how to maybe get some assistance with school supplies too. But again, thank you all, and I look forward to continue talking with you later.
Thanks.